my hope is just so much, my focus is so much just on becoming, you know, an Olympian and competing with my best friends at the Olympic Games. And it's really hard, I think, to see past that right now. It's hard because of the year that we've had and the thought of it not happening and the thought of it maybe happening, and you know, the emotions and the down times that we've had this year. I think right now my biggest hope is just that it all happens, and my biggest fear, I think, is waking up one day and just seeing a tweet or a message to say that it's not gonna happen. I think in the early part of the lockdown, you know, I hadn't really gotten that upset about the Olympics, so there hadn't been many tears. I hadn't been that, you know, emotional as such about it. I just tried to cope every day by exercising and doing what I could do. But I think in August and September, I felt really overwhelmed. I didn't know if I was coming or going, you know. I didn't know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be, you know, what was going to happen essentially. And I just felt, I think overwhelmed is the main word, and you're trying to just piece together all the little parts of your life that you had kind of put to one side for this goal of going to the Olympics. But then the end of August comes, and August 2020 was always, you know, a point in which I thought I would have time to you know, assess where I was in life and what I wanted to achieve. And then you get to that point and everything's changed, and I didn't know, as I said, I didn't know if the Olympics was going to happen. And then you're trying to work out, okay, well, should I be getting back into a career? What should I be doing in terms of hockey with training? Like, where am I at? And I think for me, I definitely struggled day to day with my thoughts and with, you know, what I wanted to do or where I wanted to go, and just, I definitely got really upset at times, and it was like I brushed everything under a rug for a few months, and then suddenly it just built up, and I just kind of woke up and realized, what is going on here? What is my life, you know, what has it come to, you know? And I think you have this guilt as well because of the overriding picture of what's going on around the world, and you see other people and they're going through so much, and you know, people are suffering in so many ways, and it's hard, I think, as an athlete to say, oh well, you know, the Olympics is cancelled, that's the biggest thing ever for me. And people maybe don't really understand that, but you know, it's probably one of the biggest things that a lot of us have gone through really in our lives, that whole purpose and sense of who you are being taken from you. I don't think I'll ever forget what it felt like not to qualify for the Rio Olympics, especially in the way that it happened. I think going into that tournament in Valencia, personally, and I think as a group, we, not in a cocky way because that's not how we operate, but we were just, we really thought it was going to happen for us, you know. We felt like everything was coming together. We knew we had to perform well, and we knew we needed a bit of the, you know, the rub of the green, but you know, I was really sure it was going to happen. I had pictured it so many times, and I think looking back now, that was definitely something that I prepared for differently going into the next qualifier. But it was to go to a shootout against China and go to be 3-1 up, or, you know, whatever it was, we looked really promising in that shootout, and then to go to sudden death and for it to just fall around, I'll never forget. I can literally close my eyes and be back there in a second, and I'll never forget standing on that pitch and us going to sudden death, and all our parents, I can see them all in the stand, and the 5 of us stepping up to take the shootout. And, you know, I always regretted looking over at the parents, because half of them had turned the other way. You know, they couldn't even cope, and you could just really feel the tension, I suppose, in the air. But I was still confident stepping up for that shootout. I knew, you know, we had a really good chance, and I still pictured us going to the Olympics, qualifying for the Olympics. I think for me, how I suppose get through the tough days when we're training is visualizing those amazing moments, and I think for 2 or 3 years in the lead up to that, I visualized the moment that we would qualify for the 2016 Olympics, and I played it over and over in my head. And I just, so much so that I was so convinced it was going to happen. So when it didn't happen that day, I don't think I've ever cried so much. I certainly at times blamed myself. I scored my first shootout but missed the second one in sudden death, and the next few days were certainly a blur. I remember walking around Valencia with Chloe Watkins, and I just was crying, and she's she's not so much of a crier, and she was even, you know, struggling a lot, and I remember going into a shop and we bought a few things, and those things I still have at home. I remember buying, really randomly, I remember buying a pack of pens. I really like stationery, and bought a pack of pens, and I've kept those pens. I've never used them, I've kept them in their packet, but it's like something I have that just reminds me of that terrible time, and I don't know why I don't throw them out, but, you know, it's like, God, I remember exactly the shop I was in. I can picture the street, you know, it was a blur those days. It was like just this weird fog, and we went out to play the Americans, and yeah, we were not even there. Then we had to play another game, and it was terrible. But I remember coming home, and we flew in, I think, on a Sunday or a Monday, and I was in work the next day, and just that feeling of having to get up and go into an office where the whole office had put the game on the screen. I was just so embarrassed. I just didn't want to be there. And people kind of like, oh, you know, hard luck, and they walk on, and nice of them to acknowledge it. But I remember sitting, and I would just burst into tears at my desk, and I'd have to go into the bathroom and close the door and just cry, and then come back out and try and pull myself together, and just that feeling of everything having fallen apart, really, was really difficult, and that went on for a while. And I think it was really rock bottom, I think, for a lot of us who had been there. But I think it took a while for us to come together as a group and realise that, you know, we were all kind of blaming ourselves a little bit, and everyone was going through, what if I'd done that, or what if I had done this, and it was at that time when we kind of came together and started really talking about how we were really feeling and how bad it was, and people, you know, I didn't really want to play anymore. I didn't know if I could physically go through that again. But when everyone then decided that, you know, we have something special, like we can do this, like there's a World Cup in 2 years, like let's just do, like let's go for it, let's really try and push and do it. And I think when we all acknowledged that everyone was feeling quite a similar way, it was easier then to move forward, and also that the group was staying together and the group was going to move forward together, and that we could use that loss as a motivating factor going forward. But yeah, I still think that that day against China I don't think it'll ever leave any of our memories, or that feeling will ever leave. And we've qualified for an Olympics since, we've achieved so much since, but I could probably still sit here and cry about what happened that day in Valencia. Yeah, that day in Donnybrook, I remember the shootout and thinking that we had lost it, and just, yeah, that feeling coming over you. I remember standing in Donnybrook and thinking, you know, is this the last time I'll wear an Irish shirt, or, you know, is this it, you know? And I remember thinking that as I stood there. And then obviously the tables turned fairly quickly, and as happens in a shootout, you know, anything can happen. And obviously our emotions were just ecstatic, but I think the main emotion for so many people was just relief. I think we were all crying. It was like a house had been lifted off our shoulders, you know. It was, if I'm honest, terrible hockey over 2 days, terrible weather, you know. People talk about how great it was, and you're kind of like, oh, like, you know, that wasn't us at our best at all. But it was just that expectation and that feeling of we can't go through that again, and we have to do this. So when we qualified, I was so relieved. That's probably my biggest emotion. I was just, literally, I could have just lay down and you know, and just let out a big breath, because I just was like, oh, thank God I don't have to go through this again, or have all of that again. And we all just, yeah, ran over to our parents, and I'd say that's exactly how they would describe it as well. They couldn't watch, they couldn't look at anything. They also thought it was gone in the middle of the shootout, and were preparing for that aftermath, and very suddenly it flips. And I remember, you know, our parents coming down onto the pitch, and I remember, you know, they were all, my parents, my brothers, and they're all crying in floods of tears. And, you know, everyone's parents, you look around, they're all just crying. And it's obviously happy tears, but it is that relief as well, and that this, you know, that we have achieved what we probably deserve to achieve. And I think we went upstairs in Donnybrook afterwards, and none of us really remember even clearing out the changing room. Suddenly all our stuff was just gone and on the bus, and, you know, I don't really remember what we did. I remember being upstairs in the bar in Donnybrook, and we're all still in our gear, and, you know, it's been miserable weather, but we're all still in our gear. And I don't even remember conversations that I had really with people. I just remember the pure relief, and I don't even think my parents or brothers said a whole lot either. I think everyone was just, it took people so long to actually, you know, recover from the whole 2-day affair, that it was incredible. And it was obviously such an amazing achievement, but there's such a stark contrast between that day and the time in the World Cup. You know, it was just pure ecstasy at the World Cup, where, you know, I always thought qualifying for the Olympics would be like the most incredible experience, and it is the most special experience for sure. but it was the relief and the, you know, just the feeling of something being lifted off you that really stands out to me, and I never thought I would have that until it actually happened. I think the hope now is obviously to be an Olympian. I think that's the main thing, and I think with this year that's happened and everything that's gone on, and that possibly being taken away, but taken away out of your control, you know, like I can't in any way guarantee that I will be at the Olympics next year as a player, but I can do everything in my power and control to give it the best shot and just make myself as available and play as well as I possibly can to get there. But I think when the chance had been taken away from you, you know, that's so hard, and you're not in control of that. So I think now it's just everything is back on the table. You're just a bit more, my hope is just so much, my focus is so much just on becoming, you know, an Olympian and competing with my best friends at the Olympic Games, and it's really hard, I think, to see past that right now. It's hard because of the year that we've had, and the thought of it not happening, and the thought of it maybe happening, and you know, the emotions and the down times that we've had this year. I think right now my biggest hope is just that it all happens, and my biggest fear, I think, is waking up one day and just seeing a tweet or a message to say that it's not gonna happen. So for me at the minute, it's just, I suppose, getting myself in the best possible position to be at the Olympics next summer, and just hoping so much that it goes ahead, and that we compete to the best of our ability. But I think personally it's been a roller coaster of a time, and I've certainly struggled this year with, you know, that sense of purpose being taken away, but it's also given me maybe perspective on what would come after hockey, you know, and I have no idea when that'll be, when hockey will end for me. It's not always something you can plan, and it's not something I want to plan. It's something I want to feel, I suppose, and something that I think I want to happen, you know, organically, and not have many predisposed ideas as to what's going to happen. But I think the hope is just that we continue to succeed as a nation in hockey, and that we continue to get the support that we need. And we are right now the most successful team in Irish sporting history, and that's a fact. That's not something we can deny. But, you know, are we the most supported Irish team? Do we get the same opportunities that other sporting teams get in this country? I would say no. And, you know, that's a real hope for me for the future, and to be part of that journey, and to be part of changing the game forever is something really special. But I really hope that I look back in however many years, when I'll definitely be too old to be still playing, and be like, God, those girls don't know how lucky they have it, you know. When I played, this is what we did, you know. But I want to look back and be really proud of that, and be proud of what we've achieved. But I think there's a real movement there that needs to happen, and we need to keep pushing for more, and not only just for the Irish women's hockey team, but for women's sport in general. But just that sense of people need to back us, and people need to see the value in what we have, and it's great when people support us, and we're so grateful for everyone that supported us, and we have some amazing sponsors on board, but like we still individually struggle with the balance of playing hockey for your country and trying to maintain a career or a life outside of that. And we still struggle as a team financially, we still struggle individually financially, you still have to make massive sacrifices. And I think as the most successful team in Irish sport, you know, you would really hope that changes, and that people see the value in us, not only as a team but also in us as individuals, and companies, or you know, any people around Ireland look at you and say, God, you know, these women are extremely talented, driven, successful people that can bring a lot to whatever it might be in life. And I think that it's not just, I just hope that these things aren't one-hit wonders or things that people jump on and jump off for, that they really see the value in what we can give and what we have done, and that they bring it forward and really help to change the landscape forever, I suppose.